first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come here. My direct report, my boss, said, I'm going to be busy. You should go. And I said, great. I'd be happy to. But this has been great. I've learned a ton. I've appreciated being able to meet all of you guys. What a great experience to be able to, because I'm new. And I'll share a little bit about that. I'm new to this world. I have not had, everybody seems to know you, which is either good or bad, right? It's either good or bad, but I'm new to this world. And so why am I up here talking, right? What is it that we're going to be talking about here for the next couple of minutes? I want to ask one question first. While we've been here, how many of you have had to put out some kind of fire at home? Raise your hands if you've had to put, yeah, I thought so. So this morning, and just FYI, that was about everybody that's involved. So that's the world that we live in. I'm coming from the athletic director world, and I moved into this, and the first question I get asked is, why? What were you thinking? Because this morning, my day began with somebody jumped the curb. It had a really long night, jumped the curb, and then hit a fire hydrant right in front of our schools, knocked it out, and now nobody can go to school. How are we going to go about with no water at the school? And you guys all know the answer to this, right? You don't. You don't go to school. So we spent this morning trying to make sure that all of our leaders were all lined up on what it is that they needed to do to be able to get all the information out to where it is we're supposed to send it. So that's what I want to talk about today, is the leadership concept. And I want you to think a little bit about you. I want to think less about, I have nothing to sell, right? I've got nothing to really teach you, I don't think, but I want you to reflect on a few things. Take a look at the image and tell me what you think when you think about leadership. Now, feel free to yell something out. What's the first thing that you think about when you think about leadership like this?
Don't jump.
Don't jump. Oh, yeah, that's good. Don't jump. And some leaders in some cases might really want to. All right. That's great. What's another one? One more.
It's hard to get to the top.
It's hard to get to the top. Yeah, lonely at the top. You're the only person there. Sure. The typical things we think about leadership is the type of things that you've announced. Let me ask you a different question. What do you expect of this guy? What do you expect? All right. Okay, having the answers. How are we going to get things done? It's important that this person have those answers, that they understand how to get things done. But I would suggest that what it is that we have to offer to our people is when we look at this guy, we give him a little bit of grace and expect a little bit of grace. Now, how do we get the people around us that expect us to do all of the different things that we're supposed to do to work with us? Okay, so first, I want to propose something to you. Everybody's seen something like this. We have to manage the difference between management, or the role of being a manager. Now, don't nod your head yet. You have to take the role of management. You have to take the role of leadership, and you've got to kind of, let's say, balance it. I say that's false. You either are a leader or you are a manager. And I think that comes from the idea of where your heart is. How is it that you see people? What is it that you do when you go to work? Do you show up to work every day to manage what's going on, or are you there to lift the people that are around you? Do you take the people that you're working with and say, okay, I am doing these management style things, the things that we would label management in the past, and I am looking at you like a leader should look at you. I'm going to manage you? No, I'm going to lead you. Now that's a mindset change that has come very recently for me because I really don't like managers a lot. Okay? When I say I don't like managers, I think they have a very limited scope, a very limited point of view. I go into the guy, and nothing against anybody that is working at a fast food joint. Nothing against it. But when I go up there and I've got an issue, I don't want to talk to somebody who's got to follow a set of protocols, that's got to check the boxes, that's got to make sure that everything's working out right. I want to talk to somebody that is going to work with me, somebody that's going to listen to what it is I have to say, somebody that's going to take into account my specific needs and then adapt, adjust. Give me some fries for free. Whatever it is that has to happen to make my life just a little easier. I don't need somebody that sees the world in black and white, that checks the box and moves on. And if I'm looking at my people as somebody that I'm just there to check the box, I need to have my bus drivers there on time. I need to make sure that my facilities guys are there on time. If I'm not considering their lives and where they're coming from, then my role is a manager. I'm probably going to irritate a lot of people. I'm going to have people upset at me more than I am having them behind me. It's all about building the people I work with. Now, reflect on that a little bit for yourself. When you think about the best leaders you've worked with, the people that you trust, can you see their faces? Were they a coach maybe in the back or a long time ago? Are they a person you work with now? Are they somebody that you look at and you think, I want to follow that person because he's leading? By necessity, leaders, when they make a decision, cut out other decisions. They cut out the ambiguity. They say, here's where it is we're going, this is what it is we're doing, and I've listened to everybody's input because that's important. I've taken into account what it is that you have to say and you have to say. I know that I'm going to tick you off when I make this decision, but let's talk about that. Because this decision is important for the overall plan. My vision of what it is we're trying to do is heading in this direction. And out of necessity, again, it cuts out the other choices. I have people that I work with that are still learning a lot of this, and so I'll share a little bit about my background. I was an athletic director, a football coach, wrestling coach, track coach. The typical person that most facilities people get really upset at because they walk in and say, I want to have this, I want to have this. Can't you do it today? Right. So now I'm dealing with all of those people and I'm helping them understand that there's a bigger vision to what it is we're trying to do. I have 42 different campuses in my district, 36,000 kids. Each of those groups of people all believe that they're the most important person on the earth and they all should have their stuff today, right? So walking into my district, we had 42 independent states that all functioned without being unified. My role as former athletic director as of 10 months ago was to come in and to do what it is that I had done at my school, which was sit down with all my coaches and say, let's talk about what we want to be. Where are we going to go? How do we unify our approach? If we're on the football team, is that going to be a different set of standards than when we're on the wrestling team? Nope. It's the same kids a lot of times. It should be the same expectations. And so now we've done that same thing in my district where I've sat down with the principals and said, we have 42 independent acting people here. What are we going to do with our facilities? I can't come to each of you and say, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And one of the first things that I did was try to say, here's where we're going. And I won't bore you with the details of how we did that. You all do it all the time. But that made a difference in the way they approached their communication with me. Because I took the ambiguity out of the conversation. Here's where we're going. This is what we're doing. I've listened to all of you and your opinions are important. I knew I was going to make the one principal really upset because she wanted a scoreboard today. And we weren't going to get it. But she's going to get it in 2 years because that's when the plan is, right? And all of you guys do those same things. The capital planning that we just talked about is really critically important but it won't work if you don't have everybody on board. So I have 4 basic mantras, 5 if you expand it a little bit. 1, we're going to take the plan that we have and we're going to continue to move. Constant, steady pressure. Constant, steady movement. If the plan is worthwhile, if it's worth doing, then it's worth staying with it. There is nobody that's going to come in and take it and derail it because we're going to respect the individuals that are coming in, but we're going to continue to move forward. Taking into account the different things that might happen to us while we're doing that, the different opinions that people are going to bring, we may adjust a little bit if needed, but that's because it's going to be better. It's going to make, as we find out these things are needed, we're going to make adjustments and changes. In my opinion, the most important part of leadership is humility. Being able to say, I'm not good at this. I've been able to say that a lot recently because I do not know what a chiller does. Okay? I know that I have people that know what a chiller does, though. My job is to make sure that they have everything that they need, that they do not have roadblocks, that they have the funding sources that they need. But I have sat down in a number of meetings, almost weekly, and say, you guys are the experts at this. I am not. And I get to do that, like I said, in a lot of different things. However, in just a few months, we've been able to take our facilities from a place that was not respected, that people really were upset at, that was based on management, and turn it into a place where one of the school board members got up recently and just praised everything that we were doing and all of the changes. Because for the first time ever, grass is getting cut and growing in Arizona. For the first time ever, we have a capital plan that kind of makes some sense. For the first time ever, our principals are unified in how it is they're approaching their facilities. Because I said, this is what we're going to do. I don't know how to do it. I need your help. Humility matters. If you're not willing to be humble and say that you make mistakes, you're in the wrong field. Because every single day we find out that people make mistakes in what we do. It was not easy to stand up in front of a whole bunch of people that were my peers, the assistant principals. Okay, in our state, the assistant principals, our athletic directors are the same thing. So as an athletic director and assistant principal, I was working with the principals, coming up with these plans. However, turning to them and saying, you don't get to have the thing you need. Or to my staff, who, for those of you guys who appreciate this, I have some people that are working for me that have been there 30 years. The average years of working in my district, in my department, is 18. That means that I have at least 5 people in my leadership team that are double my age. Okay, wait, no, that'd be really old. I'm just kidding. They have been in the district a long time. And being able to walk in and say, I know you've been doing this for the last 15 years, but we've talked about the plan, and now you've got to change. It takes courage. And you guys run into those situations or similar ones every single day where you have to show courage. If you're going to back down at the first resistance that you have to an idea, then you're not a leader. You're a manager. And I'm not talking to any one particular person. I'm saying in general, the label. It takes courage. The last thing I want to touch on quickly is just ownership and responsibility. When something happens and we screw up, because it does happen sometimes, you have to be willing to take ownership and be responsible for it. I want to share just quickly a story of somebody that helped me. When I was little, believe it or not, I was the kid that always got bullied. We wouldn't see that person now today because I'm a lot taller, a lot bigger than everybody else that was bullying me. But at the time, I was about this tall and about that wide, and I was not a aggressive person. And I showed up at my school every single day, and got beat up. And it wasn't. I'm not asking for pity. I understand the kids nowadays that struggle with those things. It was not the typical bullying we talk about now where he said something mean. It was bad. And I got beat up one day and my principal brought me in and he said, Adam, why don't you just punch him in the nose? And then you won't have this problem anymore. That didn't help me a lot. Okay? I needed him to respond. I needed him to take ownership. Now at the time I had no clue what was going on. But a few years later, there was a kid, his name was Billy Mendoza. And I don't know if he'll ever know other than hearing this talk maybe. I've shared it every single time that I share talks with kids. Billy Mendoza was a senior when I was a freshman, and I got pulled up to the varsity to go play football. And at the back of the bus, they would pull back the freshmen and the young kids, and they would trip them and knock them down and then beat on them a little bit. Now, at this point in time, I had grown. I was not the kid that was getting bullied anymore, but I was tired of it, and I was still kind of the same, little timid, not on the football field, but all the other places I was a little timid. And one of the big kids comes back. He says, Larsen's next. Well, I was sitting next to Billy Mendoza. Billy Mendoza looks at this kid, looks at me, and he says, I don't think you can take him. He says, and I think that if you try, I might have to do something about that. Now, I don't know what else happened, but I know that the kid looked at him, looked at me, and then walked away. He responded to the situation. He responded to what I needed right then. Now, granted, does that have anything to do with leadership? I don't know if it does in all of the typical books that you would read, but in my world that day, Billy Mendoza was my leader. He was the one, I would jump off a cliff for him for the next however long that he was there with me that entire year. For some reason, he took me under his wing. He helped me to be a better person. And for the whole rest of my high school career, which I ended up going and playing college ball at some point, so I did pretty well. The whole rest of my career, we would not bully on any of the teams I was a part of. There was no more hazing. We took all of the different freshmen, we lifted them up because I had been taught how to be a leader by somebody who responded. He took ownership to his team. He took ownership and said, we're not doing this here, and we are going to do this here. And he did a great job. Now again, he's 55 years old now, still living up in Winslow, has no idea the impact he made. But I do what I do now based on his reaction. And so my challenge to all of you is one, be a leader. Don't manage. Look at other people and lift them. Find ways to be able to take that person and say, okay, you really messed up today. But you know what? I've done that before too. So we're going to do this together, and I'm going to make you better. And if you'll do that, the people around you will work for you in a way that you don't understand. We haven't seen yet. Just like I do for Billy. Thank you.
Awesome.